All right, so thank you for tuning in to Chomping at the Bit. I'm Kyle Edwards, of course. This episode, I'm going to take a look at the NFL. Now, I know the Super Bowl was a couple weeks ago, but the NFL, as we know, is a 365-day event. There's always something going on in the NFL. So even though they are in the off-season, doesn't mean that there's not storylines that are going to happen that will capture the attention of every sports fan. So with this episode, I want to take a look at some of those storylines that I am interested in, and I'm sure that you are as well. So maybe I'll just be bringing these to light to you. But just for a few moments, talk about some of them, and yeah. So, of course, at the end of the episode, or after you like, subscribe, share, all that, let me know what you think. What's your biggest storyline for the NFL offseason? And then, interact a little bit. Because blink and we'll be in August. Preseason will be starting. Blink again, we'll be in September, and the regular season will be right back around. So, my number one storyline. Well, actually, I'm not gonna rank them because, they're all pretty important. So, first storyline I'm going to talk about, the USFL. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, the USFL was a football league way back in the day, and it folded. NFL was became the league. Well, they rebranded. I guess got their stuff together. We'll see. And mid-April, they're coming back. 8-team league. Full rosters, all that kind of stuff. The coaches, some guys you've heard of. They have Jeff Fisher, Mr. 8-8. If you don't know, you don't know. But, okay, so quickly, Jeff Fisher was a guy who basically, his teams would go 8-8, 9-7 for the most part. So I call him Mr. 8-8. Kevin Sumlin, who coached at Texas A&M. I want to say he was he there with Johnny Manziel? Probably was. But he's one of the coaches. Todd Haley, former Steeler offensive coordinator. He was there with Big Ben for a little bit, among others. And I'm sure if you watch some of the games, you'll see former NFL players that you'll probably recognize. But so the interesting thing with that is, I want to see, I guess, in terms of the quality of football, is it watchable? So I guess when they start, probably do an episode about it, so stay tuned for that. But, is the product on the field anything like what you see in a normal NFL Sunday or Monday or Thursday? That's the first thing. Now, even though the USFL doesn't have a partnership with the NFL right now, because they have a partnership with the XFL, which doesn't start till 2023, could the USFL become maybe a feeder system to the NFL? Probably not on a large scale, but doesn't mean that some players who play in the USFL this year may not make it to, some team's training camp, maybe a preseason roster, with a legit chance of making the regular season roster. And for me, for any league that wants to start up against the NFL, if you can say that you've put some players into the NFL or back into the NFL, because like I said, former NFL players are in the USFL, I consider that a success. I know that Daryl Johnston, I think it's like a founder or big time guy with the USFL. So we'll see if the USFL can hang around and not necessarily be an alternative to the NFL, because like you see, they're playing their season during the off season. So it'll fill that gap between Super Bowl and preseason. So I'm here for it. I'm excited for it, and I hope it does well. That's the first one. Second one, more towards the NFL now. The quarterback carousel. because we know there's a couple of big names out there that everybody's watching. Aaron Rodgers, what's going to happen with him in Green Bay? Does Green Bay, I guess, give him whatever he's looking for? He re-signs there. If he does, this is like a 1-year deal, and they start going year to year with him. Does Green Bay move on from him? And then if so, where does he end up? And if he does move, then what does that do to the musical chairs of, I guess, the quarterback carousel, you could put it? Because at that point, of course, Green Bay would need somebody, and then who do they swap them with? And, it would set off a whole chain of events. The second name is Russell Wilson. Now, I guess depending on who you listen to, it seems like Wilson wants to leave, and then other people make it seem like Russell, wants to stay, but it's more on if the team wants to move him or something like that. So that's another one that if he does move on, would probably set off a set of dominoes as well. And with those dominoes, it's, Carson Wentz, who seems like he's on his way out in Indy. You have Jimmy Garoppolo, who San Francisco told us last year that they plan on moving him because they want to go with Trey Lance, which makes sense. They drafted him high enough. It's been a few years. Time to give him his shot. We got, let's see, Derek Carr. Now that Josh McDaniels is out in Oakland, I said Oakland, Vegas with the Raiders. I mean, it seems like McDaniels is kind of, picking Carr to be his quarterback, to run his system, but you never know. And, around the league, there's some other decisions. Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, what happens there? So, Rodgers and Wilson are probably the two big names. And if one of them does move, you'll start seeing these other names. You'll start taking up other, positions that are kind of open. Because there are some teams that need to upgrade a quarterback. So, if they don't get Rodgers or Wilson, they'll have to look elsewhere. And plus, we know the NFL, it's basically about the quarterback. So, they're going to always be a big storyline come the offseason. I guess another storyline would be the draft, of course, because the draft is definitely a big, big deal every offseason. And with this year, with the quarterback class not being seen as strong as past years, how many of these teams get left out in free agent market and maybe reach too high for a certain quarterback, or do we see quarterbacks just tumbling through the first round, maybe early second round? Who will be those teams that, reaches for a guy? I mean, solely based off of, I guess, need or whatever. The guy that gets picked that, people don't see going like in the first round, because that usually happens every year as well. There's a lot of intrigue in the draft. Of course, as we get closer to the draft, I'll do an episode on, on the draft as well. But obviously, definitely a storyline that needs to be watched. And then with that, kind of as a secondary storyline to the draft, is the combine. Now, there was that report last week where they're talking about how some athletes would boycott, and agents are telling their clients to boycott the combine and all that. I believe that's been worked out, but we'll have to see if that's a storyline in itself when the combine comes around in, what was that, late March? Mid-April? Wait, what's the draft? Draft is late April, so the combine is early April, something like that. But we'll see if that becomes a story around the combine. Will there be some players that still decide not to go or whatever? Now, if you don't know the story quickly, I believe it was the agents and some players as well. I guess had an issue with the NFL's policy, around the pandemic and all that, which a lot of issues come about. Because the league wanted to set up like certain sections for players as part of their health and safety protocol. People going to the combine didn't want to feel like they were boxed in or whatever, so they were talking about boycotting. I think the NFL has lessened some of their guidelines, so looks like it should be fine. But like I said, you never know. So yeah, it's always a big deal with the draft and the combine because after the Super Bowl, biggest event on the NFL calendar, the draft. Gives you a chance to watch your team. Hopefully pick the future star of your team. So, always a big deal. Another storyline for me would be probably in terms of free agency, because we see it every year. Once again, that there will be a player that will get a contract that will seem a little high for how we remember their talent from the year before. It'll make us scratch our heads and be like, that guy got that amount of money for what? So that's bound to happen. As well as you'll probably see a guy get a deal somewhere, and it may surprise you that guy was still in the league somewhere. That does happen. I mean, not all the time, but it has happened, at least to me, before. And also with that, we might see surprise trades, surprise player getting cut. So that's always a big deal as part of the offseason, because some teams kind of base their offseason off of free agency and not so much on the draft. Of course, they'll make their picks, but they kind of draft for a couple of years down the line, whereas they use free agency to make a more immediate impact on their team for the upcoming season. Another storyline, I guess, would be, this one's kind of lower on the list for me, but announced teams. So, I think it's that, Al Michaels, I guess, potentially could retire. So it'd be interesting to see who we replace him with. Then Troy Aikman, I believe, was leaving Fox for the Monday Night Football job, which I think was not the job like they wanted to get Peyton Manning for and a couple other guys. Seems like it's Troy Aikman's job now. So interested to see that. The Monday Night Football team has been kind of hit or miss past few iterations for me. Troy Aikman, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, when he worked on Fox, he mainly did, at least to me, it seemed like he was on Cowboys assignment every week. But I think he's pretty good. So should be fine for Monday Night Football. And like I said, Monday Night Football could really use a good announced team. If Al Michaels does go, that'd be an interesting thing, because Michaels worked with Collinsworth all these years now. Would be interesting to see who they would replace him with. I don't know who I could think of off the top of my head, but that'd be interesting. I think while I was saying that, I thought about another storyline, but I'm kind of drawing a blank. But so like I said, NFL may not be going on the field, but there's still so much. Oh, okay. So I just remember Tom Brady. This is something else you need to let me know as well. Do you think Tom Brady is really going to stay retired? For me, I had this weird hunch that he is, but I wouldn't put it past him to come back. It kind of seems odd that, Garoppolo's on his way out. Brady's a San Francisco kid. Well, guy. He's 40-something years old. So, San Francisco guy. Would be weird if Garoppolo moved out They brought Brady in for like a year. Yeah, I know they want to give Trey Lance a shot, but it's Tom Brady. And that roster, Brady with Deebo Samuel and all that, they would be a lock to be at least a Super Bowl favorite. So it would be a chance that they'd have to take, of course. So, I mean, that's kind of a storyline. Because like I said, I think Brady's retired. I couldn't see him, doing this and then sitting out a year, coming back. I mean, I think at 45, like I said, I think that's tough. But if anybody could do it, it would be Brady, of course. So would not be surprised if he did it. Might be a little shocked, but I don't know. We'll have to see. That's definitely one to really keep an eye on. Let's see, another storyline. I was going to say Cowboys fan base, what's the date where, or what, maybe not the date, but what's the move that they make in free agency or whatever that gets the media people and, of course, the Cowboy fan base thinking Super Bowl for next year? Happens every year. You can usually pinpoint it to some draft pick or some big name free agent signing, which I put in quotes because, it's just somebody we recognize. But in the end, what usually happens? The Cowboys win the NFC East, come short of the playoffs, and then we're right back here the following year. So, just saying. I mean, like I respect Cowboys fans for, their loyalty to the team. At some point, you got to be realistic, and I just don't see it. I don't see where the optimism is with a Super Bowl with them, but that's like a lot of fan bases, because I'm sure there's like Bears fans out there who are assuming that the Bears will be a Super Bowl team, this coming year. Who knows? But that's an interesting thing. Another one, Desean Watson. What do we make of that whole situation? He was the Texans quarterback 1 minute, on the brink of being maybe the best quarterback in the AFC. Looking like, he could be that type of guy to maybe take the Texans to a Super Bowl. Then he has his off the field issues, and now we haven't seen him in a couple of years, and I don't know what's going on. What was it, the other day? The judge said something about like 9 counts that he can be charged for, or something like that. But basically, when do we get a resolution to all this? We don't know. Well, we kind of know the Texans don't really plan on playing him again, which makes sense. I could see that. We don't know if he's going to be on some commissioner exemption list. That hasn't happened. Maybe Goodell's is waiting to see if he ends up with a new team and then puts him on the exempt list. I don't know. If you're a team with a quarterback, what quarterback needs, what's your motivation to call Houston right now and make a deal for him? Not knowing legal side of, the legal side or football side, how that's going to affect when or if he returns to the field. And I think with each passing day, that if is becoming like a bigger deal to me. Like, I'd hate to see it because, like I said, Watson, very talented, great young quarterback, but yeah, the off the field thing is a serious matter, of course. Not making light of that in any way. But I don't know how many years he can miss and then try to come back once again, if he can, and, still be somewhat of an effective quarterback. I mean, if it is the end for him, it would be a really sad tale. But I'm assuming at some point this year we will learn something about Watson, whether it's, I don't know, jail time or something, or he can come back and play. Something like it has to happen this year, doesn't it? It's another storyline. I was gonna say the next Super Bowl halftime, but that usually happens in season, I think. So it doesn't really count as an off-season storyline. Okay, so I guess maybe the last one for me is, so the Washington football team is no more. They're now the Washington Commanders. I think my storyline is going to be, how long into the offseason will it take for that to become a normal thing to say? Because as you just heard, kind of took a little bit of hesitation in the name because for some reason I wanted to say Washington Generals really quickly, although that was not the name I was thinking. Commanders wasn't either. I thought they were going to go with, I think like the beginning where they were talking about possibilities for names, they put out there like Red Wolves or something. I kind of thought that was a good one to go with, but they ended with Commanders. I mean, it's fine, I guess. So how long into the offseason is it before that becomes a normal thing to say? Because Los Angeles Chargers have been there for a couple of years, and I will still see people on TV make the mistake and say San Diego Chargers. You just heard me earlier say Oakland Raiders, even though it's Vegas Raiders now. So whenever a team makes a name change or moves cities, it usually takes some time. So how long before Washington Commanders just rolls off the tongue? So like I said, I think those are basically all the storylines I'm looking for. Yeah, because I mean, all the coaching situations are filled. So I'm not expecting a coach to get fired over the offseason. Crazier things have happened. So yeah, so those are my storylines, like I said. Because as I said, the NFL's always going. There's always something happening. So I will still try to fit NFL into each week. So I think next week what I'll try is looking at some of those quarterbacks that are kind of on the bubble, I guess, with their team, their current team, and do a little game of stay or go. Basically look at them and say, well, I guess I could take it from different aspects. Because one could be in terms of the quarterback itself, well, themselves, should they want to stay or go? Other aspect would be from the team's point of view, whether the team should want them or not. So I'll figure out which way I'm going to go about it, but I think I should do that next week. But yeah, so like I said, I want to take a quick little moment with you, talk about some of those off-season storylines. You let me know, like I said, let me know what you think, which one's the biggest one to you. I'm assuming it's the quarterback situations around the league because that usually is the biggest deal. But yeah, so like I said, after you like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, leave a comment, review, all that stuff, let me know what you think. And I guess just looking at next couple of episodes possibly. The MLS season got started on Saturday. I think I want to talk about the MLS for a little bit on one of these upcoming episodes. I want to talk about Juwan Howard, the whole Michigan thing. Of course, got to do that. And yeah, so this is probably the next two episodes that you'll hear. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. And you know what to do. Like I said, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tell somebody you know. But as I always say, hope you like I said, hopefully you enjoy it. But God bless. Be safe out there. And I'll catch you next episode. And of course, thoughts and prayers with the whole Ukraine situation. Had to say that at the end here, but I just wanted to leave you with that. So I'm out. Have a great day.